Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. Alright, so the big Dominion preview. AOS3 is released. It's all good. We have some pretty nice miniatures to have a look at, so let's jump into it. So yeah, Warhammer Preview Online Dominion Celebration. Cool. So it's pretty interesting. I've already had like a little brief, look at this, and it's really cool. Everything's looking good. I've got a few thoughts on it, but we'll move down and take a look. So coming on down, we have our first two battle tomes being released. So we've got Stormcast Eternals and Auroch Warclans. So as everyone sort of, knew or predicted, or the leaks or whatever, that these Kruleboyz are part of the Orc Warclans book rather than having their own book, it looks like. So which is cool. It just I guess that'll just give all players more options. Generally there'll be more synergies and so on within those two sub factions, I guess. So that's kind of cool. And the Stormcast Eternals, that's the one I'm kind of interested in and looking for. I think that's going to be pretty good from the look of what we're about to see for the new models, which is the next part of the wave in releases for Stormcast. And as we'll see further, there is more to come. That's the same for the Kruleboyz as well. But the fact that they're getting now better armor, so 3+ armor, and at least so I've seen so far, a 2-inch reach. Sorry, a 2-inch reach on the battle line troops and all that sort of thing. That's looking pretty good, considering the new coherency rules and everything is going to make 1-inch reach stuff a little bit difficult to use, especially if you're on like the larger base size, the 32 and above. So yeah, I'm interested to see what kind of advancements they do. It feels like it is definitely going to be like the kind of Space Marines of fantasy, and that's good. I've talked about this before. I think that's good for the game. I think that they need that kind of strong anchor there within the system, and it just gives you a good starting army to get into this game with, that's relatively user-friendly, but still has enough depth to play competitively and all that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that they are actually competitive. That would be, I'm hoping that they have the breadth and I guess depth of the Space Marine book to go to be competitive and go to tournaments and win with these guys, so that they stay in the meta generally and aren't sort of like on the back foot all the time, but they just are very consistent and that sort of army that you can take and learn the game with, because that's going to help you, right? If everything's all sort of crazy, wacky, weird, and up and down, then, how do you really learn? Some people would argue learning with a bad book is good because it makes you a better player, but how many times are you going to lose a game before you just give up on that, And because of how costly, this game is and everything like that, unless you really love it, you're probably going to fall out pretty quickly if the army you're playing just really sucks, And I used to see that all the time back in the day, like, people would choose an army and they'd be almost there. They're like the friends that are almost in, but for whatever reason, they've chosen the one army that doesn't get an update for like a million years, and they just keep losing or keep not really getting that satisfying, endorphin hit, and then, they fall out. And so, yeah, giving new players and people like that and casual players something where they can just pick it up. It's easy to paint. There's not a lot of like craziness you got to do to get it painted, and boom, you're on the table and you're playing games, and every few you win. You're still going to lose, but you at least have a chance to be a bit more competitive if you want to. And if you don't, you can still pull out a win and just be super casual about it. And even though winning's not everything, but it is an aspect. I mean, this is a tactical game, a game where you have a winner and a loser, you know what I mean? Even if you're not playing for that reason, there still is that concept in the game, because it's a game, and so you want to have at least the chance of that. And so I really like what they're doing with these. Hopefully it does follow through with the rules. But anyway, I'm waffling on now, so let's continue. The Auroch Warclans and the Stormcast Eternals are the stars of the Dominion box set. So it's only right that they get the first battle tomes in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Let's take a look at the glorious covers. Yep, they're all good. We're going to a red sleeve or spine. So that's cool. It's like old classic style, I guess. As well as the war scrolls for the units in Dominion, these books contain sumptuous new artwork and lore that delves deeper than ever before into each faction. They also expand on the awesome Path to Glory narrative campaign rules for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar core rulebook. Yep, cool. Both books include new subfaction rules, and best of all, every battle tome in the new edition contains a code that lets you access its rules in the upcoming Age of Sigmar app, which is due to head into beta later this year. Okay, so this little part here is a little bit concerning. Yeah, who knows how well that'll go. The fact that it says which is due to head into beta later this year when they've got Warhammer Plus releasing in August, isn't it? So, you know, that's not a really very good sign. I think that they probably jumped the gun on their Warhammer Plus a little bit. They should have made sure this was already completed before they did that. I think that's a little bit, yeah, I think they're pushing ahead a little bit too quickly for what they're actually capable of producing, and there's definitely going to be a backlash from that. How much of it actually affects the company, who knows? But just in terms of players, which is what's more important, your experience of this I don't think is going to be amazing considering that statement. And the other aspect to this is that like with 40k, I think, or 40k at the moment anyway, you're going to buy the book, get the code, and then you get the digital version through the app or whatever, which is a little bit sort of, I don't know. Anyway, I don't really mind. I'm old school. I use a pen and paper, or, you know, just type it up in a notepad on, you know, a Word document or whatever, or on your phone, or, you know, I'm not a huge app guy anyway. So for me, this stuff doesn't really bother me at all, because I you know, for like 30 years of this hobby, you know, or 20 something plus years of this hobby, you never had an app. You just wrote it down on a bit of paper, and that costs you nothing. So if you don't want to pay for Warhammer Plus and all that kind of stuff, you can just use a pen and paper like we used to do, and you just write out your army, and there you go. But you know, I get it. It's a thing, right? But there is also other options like Battlescribe and so on. So, you know, if this stuff doesn't work out that well, there are definitely other options out there for you to do your digital, you know, list building and so on. But we'll see what happens with that. It's too hard to say right now whether it's going to be good or bad. But judging on past experiences, this sentence at the end here, due to head into beta later this year, doesn't sound hopeful for what's going on here. That's yeah, that's a bit of a worry, but anyway, that's I guess for others to worry about, and we'll just see what happens at the back end. So now we have the new miniatures, which is the main part of this and much more interesting. So here we go. We've got this really cool looking Lord guy. So let's see what he is. You need as many powerful heroes as you can. Get to face Kragnos, yep, and the Kruleboyz. Well, should gladly try. Druster can't do it on her own. Step forward, Lord Commander Bastion Cathalos, leader of the Hammers of Sigmar. So yeah, that's really cool. Like, I guess sub-faction specific lords and so on, if they release those, that's great. That fits in with the Space Marine idea, where you have your different themes, like your different chapters and so on. So in this case, it's chambers, not chapters. So yeah, look, I mean, that's really cool. Great model. I love the face. It's awesome. Yeah, everything about it's really cool. I can see some great conversions here. In fact, all of this Stormcast range is just, you know, screaming Space Marine, you know, custom chapter conversion, you know, or like your own custody style, you know, army using these models instead of the custodies, because you have all these plastics, you can do a lot more with it, right? That'd be really fun. You could do like some really nice stuff there. So there's a whole range of options for these models which are outside of just Stormcast, which I think is, you know, really cool for the range. All these extra parts and things and all this stuff, it's just great. I like the base with the little skull here with the brazier sort of thing going on. Interesting choice of color for that as well. Overall, really cool. There's nothing really bad about this. It's classic Warhammer stuff. You know, the bigger the shoulder pads, the better. The bigger the cape, the better. You know, the bigger the headdress, the better. You know, that's the bigger the weapon, the better. It's all what classic Warhammer. There's nothing new here. This is just Warhammer, you know, in a nutshell. And yeah, looks great. Apparently, from what I've heard from other people talking about this, his hammer is really good, or at least has high damage on it, which will be nice. Who knows exactly what the stat line will be for this guy, but judging by the stats of the stuff in the Dominion box, it's looking like, you know, they're getting a little bump in their raw stats. So then they're not going to be the sort of 4s kind of region, 3s to 4s region. It looks like they're sort of moving more to the 3s kind of thing with some 2s in there, you know what I mean? In terms of like things like hitting and armor save and all that kind of stuff. And their damage looks like that might be getting a little buff as well as maybe possibly reach on some of these units. So all in all that kind of stuff is good, because the way the new game is going, their base sizes and coherency, that's very important. So yeah, all good for Stormcast, right? Not to say that I'm biased or anything, but we'll be collecting these guys. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, the link's in the down there. I've been doing a bunch of the new Stormcast. Well, you can see the tutorials on YouTube as well. There's a bunch of how to paint videos, hobby tip videos up at the moment that show painting on a Stormcast color scheme that I've been working on, and I've been showing those images on Instagram. And very classic Warhammer style thing. So you got like black robes, much like this guy here, but then your second color for the secondary robe parts is a bone white, and then you have like a brass armor rather than the gold, with a lot of color glazing in it, and it's very classic. And then the pauldrons, the shoulder pads are in a black that's been highlighted up and then glazed with a sort of that turquoise green contrast, and so you get like a really nice balance, but it's really classic and old school Warhammer, a bit like this guy here, except instead of like this deep blue, it would be bone. And it looks really cool, and so like I'm can't wait to try that out on these newer models. It should be a really fun one. So if you're interested in alternate color schemes, go and check that out, because it's it's really fast to do. I use that Rune Lord brass spray can, and the process is super quick and very relaxing. So if you want a relaxing paint scheme that's not going to take you very long, and you can spend a bit of time practicing your layering and highlighting on smaller areas, like these type of things, it's a good one to do. But anyway, I digress. Let's take a look at this, guys. This one's basically a chaplain, so everyone's going to be using this again for 40k. This is the Knight Relictor, provides support with prayers to the God King Sigmar, and they're handy with a maul on the front line. Yep, so this is basically a chaplain. He's going to do your priests, your prayers and so on. Now that we know that that's kind of like a big deal for AOS3, or at least it's being given more prominence. Overall, I don't mind this guy. It's fine. This kind of thing on the front here is a little bit strange, but apart from that little kind of, I guess, whatever that is, everything else about him is pretty cool. You could just chop that out and put something else there. But yeah, I don't mind this guy. I think it's got a nice silhouette. It's very, very Space Marine like, which is fine by me. I don't really have a problem with that. It's it's very cool. All right, so let's go on. So down here we've got these Vanquishers clad in Thunderstrike armor, and they've got great swords. So I guess this is your other most likely battle line unit, or can be made battle line unit, or I would imagine it's battle line, to go with the spear guys. So we'll see what their reach is, but if their reach is 2 as well, that makes your battle line troops very, very useful in the new edition. And they're great sculpts, all good. You got this little half cape on. Some great poses. Let's take a look. Yeah, we've got really nice stuff. The faces are all really cool, like with the other ones. They're doing a lot of different ethnic backgrounds and different looks. All really unique. Different poses, dynamic and standing and so on. A lot of cool stuff going on here. I can't see a problem with any of this stuff. It's going to be really fun to paint. Nice, clean lines. Everything's really good and really understandable in terms of what everything looks like. You're not sort of having to squint. Got nice big shapes. Should be fun to paint. I can't wait. this sort of classic Warhammer thing right here. This will make for a lot of good conversions. I can see many people using this model right here. With old man face. He'll appear on many Space Marine captains, I'm sure. But anyway, we'll come across, and like even this one here, where he's like holding the blade. That's classic Warhammer stuff as well. Everything's really good here. So we'll see what the rules are like, but overall, it's looking really positive for sure. Then we come down, we've got a new class of archer. So these are meant to be, so what are they called? Vigilors. I don't know. The naming is all a bit beyond me at the moment. I'm only just starting to understand all the names for these Stormcast. But anyway, it's looking good for your like shooting units, you've got now another choice, which hopefully will give you again that bump in the stat line, which you're kind of seeing across the board so far with these new ones. So if they're also going in line with that, then I would imagine 3+ armor, and then whatever this bow is, hopefully long range, decent damage, and that should be really good, right? Hopefully hitting on better than a 4, and you should be fine. 3s or better is going to be good, you know. So I think that's really positive. So let's take a look at the models. So again, we've got these nice flowing lines, very sculptural, you know, all these sort of wind-swept cloaks. Really nice look. It goes well with the armor, you know. In fact, a little bit better than let's say if we have a look back at these ones. These are very sort of static and very straight, whereas on the archers here we're seeing much more movement. So I kind of like that. I think that's really nice. But they're not all like that, which is the key. You've got some that are a bit more static, and then some that are a bit more elaborate, which is a nice touch. So yeah, again, really different faces, you know, different ethnicities. That's really good to see. Very positive. All different looks and so on, which is really cool. And different helmet designs as well, some with like these sort of more classic ones, or even more sort of sparse style, some that are heavier. We've got one here with the beard, which is, I think, the connection to the new I can't remember what the dwarf god is, but anyway, the one that's back helping them build the armor and so on. We've got the little bit of dwarven look there in the helmet, and then this really interesting one. So that with that head there, that's really different. That's a very classic 80s fantasy looking head there, which is cool. You know, that's a nice touch for those that are old enough to remember the 80s. You know, that's really cool. So I think overall we're looking at a pretty nice box here. There's a lot of interesting conversion possibilities and painting possibilities with these, so I can imagine that most armies will include them. I definitely will be, as long as their stat line's below 4 and it's getting into the 3s and 2s. I'm down, you know, and that should be good. All right, now we come across and we've got these Annihilators. So these are like the multi-part kit versions, not the push fit, and we're seeing some interesting ones here, all really cool. You've got the double-handed option, and you've got your hammer and shield. Really nice, you know, big bulky Terminators. I don't know how great they're going to be in the game. They're a bit slow, so I'm not really sure what their use is going to be, or if it's not really going to be very competitive. It's a bit hard to tell, really. I've never really liked super slow things. I play Death Guard in 40k, and I'm glad that they upped their movement slightly, so you don't have them quite so slow, because it is really tough to play an army that just doesn't get anywhere. It's a bit, especially because the game is all based on movement and, you know, capturing objectives and moving around the board. Those with the most flexibility generally at the top of the heap, and those that aren't are at the bottom. And so changing that concept and making, you know, giving a bit of movement to some of this stuff is really important. It might break the theme slightly, but you basically can't play the game without, you know, that extra bit of movement. It's very difficult. So having these be that slow, I'm not really sure what kind of play they're going to see, but, you know, they could be cool. I guess there must be other rules that help them out. So like that other character that lets them get a closer charge when they deep strike in, when they come down. But what sort of other rules they get, I don't know, but we'll see when it comes. I guess it's coming very soon. So now we come on to the Kruleboyz. So these guys, very Lord of the Rings, right? We all know Peter Jackson style Lord of the Rings stuff going on here, and that's all good. That's great. So first up is Swamp Boss Scumdrek. He's a legend among the Kruleboyz. So this is your named character, and yeah, looks really cool, right? The model's just, I mean, what can I say? It's got so many details, so much stuff going on. Really interesting design for the creature. I love that. I love the big snapping mouth. It's got tons of influence, you know, between sort of alligator or crocodile kind of textures to this sort of almost possibly like almost rhino type folds on the skin. All of that type of stuff is really interesting. I love sculpting creatures like this. I do it all the time, and you know, this is definitely up my alley in terms of the creature design. It's what I said before on the original one, like from the Dominion box. Their creatures for these Kruleboyz are really cool. I do like them a lot. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great model. It's going to be hard to paint, but very, very cool. So I like that. And then, yeah, you got the different options, the exposed head as well. There's a few different choices there. But overall, like a pretty cool model. If you were collecting these guys, you'd be very happy with this. Hopefully it has good rules and you get to actually play, a good game with it. But otherwise, it's pretty good. And then you got your generic guy here, which is the Snatch Boss on Sludge Racker. So... Yeah. I actually like this head a lot. The one with the armor with the closed mouth, the more sort of, this sort of bony looking kind of one. That's really cool to me. I like that a lot. But anyway, all good. Hopefully they come out pretty soon. I would imagine so, since they're showing them. And then this is really fun. This is like the first time we've seen some humor, a bit more humor in these orcs. So we see it more. This is way more of a classic Warhammer looking thing. It's moving away from Peter Jackson and bridging the gap between Warhammer and a Peter Jackson universe. That's not the only giant beastie joined the ranks of the War Clans. There's also the Marsh Crawler Slogoth, and basically it's like a troll that's on all fours and with these little grots on top. So it's not a huge model. This is obviously a lot smaller. It's got that oval base. It doesn't look like a massive one, since that's just a troll and these are little grots. So yeah, a very fun, nifty little model that I'm sure does cool, funky little rules. Whether it's competitive or not, who knows? But it's a very cool looking idea, like this design with them on all fours and everything. I love the shapes of the anatomy. It's working out really good. I actually prefer this. So this other face here, the alternate, I think that's really cool. So this has a lot more personality in it, and this actually feels very menacing because you feel like this guy's actually looking at you, as opposed to the sort of, I guess, blank kind of Scream look that we've got on the original one. But this I think is a really nice photo and shows the character of this model, which I can see a ton of conversions here as well for a whole bunch of things. So that's really interesting. But yeah, we've got a lot of character here. There's way more. They're still not very like ha funny. They're still very serious, in their faces for the grots. But definitely there's a bit more humor going on, which is nice. I think that's good, because I think only going into that Peter Jackson look is a bit off-brand for Warhammer. I think Warhammer needs to have that for their orcs, that little bit of humor in there, because that's their history, that's where they come from, that English soccer fan thing, and to remove it completely is a little bit of a shame, considering the long history it's got with the company. But anyway, now we've got onto I guess these are the multi-part kits for the stabbers. So we've got so they go along, the gut rippers, sorry, that have the stabbers and then the axe and shield. So we've got the command group here, and we come across, the standard, and this is the alternate weapon for them. So I don't think anyone's really going to use this, because obviously reach is a massive, big deal in AOS3, and because they're on the larger base sizes, if they're reach 1, it's not going to be very useful, so you probably will just stick with the spear. But, that's cool, like just for a painting option or for a conversion or something, that's fun. But if you're playing with them, then I would say these guys aren't going to see much play, at least in this configuration. So yeah, they're all really cool. They got a lot of character. I'm liking these guys a lot more as I see them, as I see the different sculpts and the anatomy more, and across a lot more of them. I think they're starting to grow on me a lot more. Originally, I was like kind of a little bit skeptical about their proportions, but seeing them now in these photos, they're starting to look a little bit more correct. So it might have just been the photos that I was looking at, those original ones. They just seemed a little bit off, but this feels a little bit nicer, so that's cool. Happy about that. And we'll come down. And so now we've got these, and these are really cool. Like, I think these are going to be in most orc armies. These, what are they called again? The man-skewer bolt boys. So yeah, they're and a bolt boy boss. So these are going to be in pretty much every orc army, because the shooting's just so useful and so important. So yeah, really beautiful model. This has a lot of character in it. This is getting more. This is like bridging the gap again between the Warhammer and the Peter Jackson thing, because he's angry, but there's this little bit of smirk. There's something a bit more kind of more orky going on in his facial features, which I think is lacking in some of them. Like, it just has a bit more expression there. He's got a bit more dynamism. He's feeling more like a Warhammer orc, and I think that's something that needs to be explored in these going, into the future. Just adding a bit of that quirky character. I mean, they've got it on their shields. All their shields are Warhammer, but the rest of the model kind of isn't. And just adding a bit of that expression in to make them feel a bit more orky, I think is probably a good thing. And all really beautiful models. They're going to be a great addition to any orc army for sure. And I can imagine, as long as their rules are half decent, you'll be taking them if you're playing orcs. I can't see why you wouldn't. So yeah, all really good. And so now we have a look. So let's see, where does it have the bit about? Now these are the 2 books. And the initial release will be up in August. So I don't know where that is now. Here we go. So yeah, the next steps of the new age. The new Orc War Clans and Stormcast Eternals battle tomes are available to pre-order in August. A 3rd battle tome will follow these in October, something a little more chaos flavored. And this is just the beginning. There's a lot in store, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, basically pre-orders are up in August. They'll come out, I guess, the week or 2 after that. And then as we get into October, you'll get a Chaos faction. So that could be maybe Beasts of Chaos. It could be maybe even... Maggot King of Nurgle. There's rumors that they're going to be a bit earlier in the release schedule, so maybe it's one of those 2. But it could be any of them, really, depending on how they've been going. But possibly Beast, because they need an update. They've both Nurgle and Beast have very old battle tomes, so I'm assuming one of those will probably come. But that's really cool for all the Chaos players. And so we're looking relatively good. So you've got basically maybe about 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get all your stuff painted and ready before all the next load of new releases come, which is nice. So a couple of months to enjoy the initial release of this edition, and then straight into the first book. So that's pretty good. So I'd keep an eye out for that. I'll definitely be covering it as we go forward. But I think that everything's really cool here, right? The new release is looking good. This isn't all of it. There'll be a 3rd wave for all of these, I think, and the last little piece of the puzzle of all these models will probably come out towards the end. I don't think it'll be many models, but I think that there'll be a little bit more after this, which would be interesting to see. And it'll just give both of their ranges a lot more models and a lot more choices, and that's really the best that you can hope for, right? A lot of options, and hopefully that they're all, most of them, let's say 80% of them, viable. That'll be really, really nice to see. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button if you have, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.